Bill Gates, co-founder of Microsoft and philanthropist. William Bill Henry Gates was born on October 28, 1955, in an upper-middle-class family in Seattle, Washington. An avid reader, Gates excelled at Lakeside School and did very well in many subjects. In the 8th grade, the Mothers Club at the school purchased a teletype terminal and a block of time on the school's computer. Gates would spend as much time as he could on the computer and wrote his first program at the age of 13, a tic-tac-toe program in basic computer language that allowed users to play against the computer. In 1973, he graduated from school with a score of 1,590 out of 1,600 on his SAT tests. During his time at school, Gates had befriended Paul Allen over their love of computers. They had built a computer program based on the Intel 8008 chip called Trafodata that monitored traffic patterns in Seattle. Although Gates had acquired a place at Harvard University to study law, he would eventually drop out in 1975 to pursue a business with Allen. Gates and Allen were inspired by an article in Popular Electronics magazine on the Altair 8800, a build-it-yourself kit microcomputer. They contacted the company who made the Altair, called Micro Instrumentation and Telemetry Systems, or MITS, who were located in Albuquerque, New Mexico, saying that they were developing a basic software program that would run the Altair computer. In reality, they didn't have an Altair to work with. The company agreed to a demonstration, so the pair worked hard on writing the program. The program worked, and Allen was hired by the company, and Gates would soon leave Harvard to join him. Gates and Allen then established Microsoft on April 4, 1975, with Gates as the CEO. The name was a blend of microcomputer and software. While Gates oversaw the business, he would also continue to write code himself and review it before it shipped. IBM approached Microsoft in July 1980 as they wanted an operating system for its upcoming personal computer. Gates said it could be done, although Microsoft didn't actually have such an operating system for IBM's new PCs. Gates approached a small software company and made an offer of $50,000 for an already made system called 86DOS, while keeping it confidential who it was for. He adapted it for the PC and delivered it to IBM as PC-DOS for the same price of $50,000. Keeping the source code, Gates required that manufacturers, including IBM, pay a licensing fee. Microsoft licensed the software to PC manufacturers as MS-DOS, making the company a major player in the industry with sales going from $7 million in 1980 to $16 million in 1981. At the same time, Apple, led by Steve Jobs, invited Microsoft to write software for their computers. Through these collaborations, Gates identified that Macintosh's work-in-progress graphical user interface was much more user-friendly than the text and keyboard-driven MS-DOS system Microsoft currently had. Gates would then soon announce his own graphical user interface, called Windows, for all PCs with MS-DOS. In 1984, Apple launched the Macintosh, and a year later, Gates and Microsoft launched Windows. In 1987, Bill Gates, at age 31, had become the world's youngest billionaire. Gates continued to improve Windows and persuaded computer manufacturers to preload it on every computer it sold, and by 1993, Windows was running on almost 85% of the world's computers. This would also cause investigations into Microsoft for unfair marketing practices as a monopoly. In 1995, Gates launched the revolutionary Windows 95.
वर्ष 1955 ඔක්තෝබර් මාස 28 වන දින ඇමරිකාවේ වොෂින්ටන් ප්‍රාන්තයේ සියටල් නගරයේ ඉහළ මධ්‍යම පාන්තික පවුලක දෙවන දරුවා ලෙස බිල් ගේට්ස් උපත ලබනවා. බිල්ගේ පියා විලියම් හෙන්රි ගේට්ස් අතර ඔහු වෘත්තීන් නීතිඥවරයෙක්. මව මේරි මැක්ස්වෙල් ගේට්ස් අතර ඇය වෘත්තීන් ගුරුවරියක්. බිල් හැදී වැඩෙන්නේ සොයුරියන් දෙදෙනෙකු සමගයි. වයස අවුරුදු 13 දී බිල්ගේ දෙමව්පියන් බිල්ව ලේක්සයිඩ් පාසලට ඇතුළත් කරනු ලබනවා. එහිදී බිල් තමන්ගේ ප්‍රථම මෘදුකාංග ප්‍රෝග්‍රෑමේ නිර්මාණය කරනු ලබනවා. ඒ සිදුවන්නේ මෙන්න මේ විදිහට. බිල් 8 වන ශ්‍රේණිය ඉගෙන ගන්න අවදීදී එම විද්‍යාලයේ දෙමව්පිය සංගමය විසින් ලේක්සයිඩ් පාසලට ටෙලිටයිප් මොඩල් 33 යන කම්පියුටරේ පරිත්‍යාගය කරනු ලබනවා. මෙම පරිගණකයේ කෙරෙහි උනන්දුවක් දක්වන බිල්ට ඒ භාවිතා කිරීමට විද්‍යාලය විසින් අවසර ලබා දෙනවා. එහිදී තමයි ඔහු මෙම පරිගණක ක්‍රීඩා සඳහා වන මෘදුකාංග ප්‍රෝග්‍රෑමය නිර්මාණය කරන්නේ. මේ කාලයේදීම තමයි ඔහුට ඔහුගේ ජීවිතේ හොඳම මිතුරා හා පසුකාලීනව ඔහුගේ ව්‍යාපාරවලට අනගී සහායක් ලබා දුන් පෝල් ඇලන් කියන පුද්ගලයාව බිල්ට හමුවන. ඔහු බිල්ට වඩා වසර 2ක් වැඩි මහලු පුද්ගලයෙක්. 1970 දී මේ බිල් පෝල් සමග එකතුව සියටල් නගරයේ රථවාහන මෙහෙයුම් පද්ධතිය මෙහෙයවීමට පරිගණක වැඩසටහනක් නිර්මාණය කරනවා. ඉන්පසු ඔවුන් එය අලෙවි කරලා ඇමරිකානු ඩොලර් 20000ක මුදලක් උපයා ගන්නවා. එතකොට බිල්ට වයස අවුරුදු 15. 1973 දී බිල් පාසල් අධ්‍යාපනය හමාර කරන්නේ එහි පැවති අවසාන විභාගයෙන් ලකුණු 1590ක් ලබා විශිෂ්ට ලෙස සමත් වෙනවා. ඔහු එම වසරේම නීති විෂය හැදෑරීම සඳහා ලෝ ප්‍රකට හාවර්ඩ් විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයට ඇතුළත් වෙනවා. ඒ අතරම පරිගණක විද්‍යාව හා ගණිතය විෂයන් ඔහු හදාරනවා. හාවර්ඩ් විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයට ඇතුළත් වුවත් බිල් එහිදී නීතිය ඉගෙනීමට එතරම් උනන්දුවක් දක්වන්නේ නැහැ. ඔහු බොහෝ විට කාලය ගත කරේ පරිගණකයත් සමග. මේ නිසාම ඔහු සමහර නීති විෂයන් අසමත් වෙනවා. බිල්ගේ දෙමාපියන් බලාපොරොත්තු වුණේ බිල් අනාගතයේ නීතිඥවරයෙකු වෙනවා දකින්න. නමුත් එම බලාපොරොත්තු සුණු විසුණු කරමින් වසර 2කට පසු බිල් හාවර්ඩ් විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයෙන් ඉවත් වෙනවා. ඉන්පසුව දිගින් දිගටම පරිගණක වැඩසටහන් නිර්මාණය කිරීමේ නියැලී සිටින ඔහුගේ චින්තනය වෙනස් මගකට යොමු කිරීමට 1970 පොපියුලර් ඉලෙක්ට්‍රොනික සංකරාව සමත් වුණා. එහි අල්ටර් 8800 යන පරිගණකයේ පිළිබඳු ලිපියක් පළ වෙනවා. පෝල් සහ බිල් යන දෙදෙනාම මේ කෙරෙහි විශාල උනන්දුවක් දක්වනවා. මේ උනන්දුව නිසාම ඔවුන් එම පරිගණකයේ නිපදවූ MIT සමාගමේ කළමනාකාරීත්වය හමු වෙන්න තීරණය කරනවා. මෙලෙස ඔවුන් කළමනාකාරීත්වය හමු වෙලා එම පරිගණකයට බේසික් පරිගණක වැඩසටහනක් ලියන බව පවසමින් එම සමාගම සමග ගිවිසුමකට එළඹෙනවා. ඔවුන් එම වැඩසටහන විශිෂ්ට ලෙස පසුව නිමා කරනවා. මේ සමගම ඔවුන් එදා මෙදා තුර බිහි ලොව ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨතම සමාගම් වලින් එකක් වන මයික්‍රොසොෆ්ට් සමාගම 1975 වසරේ බිහි කරනවා. ඔවුන් මෙම නම සකසන්නේ මයික්‍රෝ කම්පියුටර් හා සොෆ්ට්වෙයාර් යන පද දෙකෙහි සංකලනයක් සිදු කර.
January 1st, 1975, the MITS Altair 8800 appeared on the cover of Popular Electronics, inspiring two young men, Paul Allen and Bill Gates, to develop basic language software for it. Shortly after, on February 1st, 1975, Bill Gates and Paul Allen complete Altair Basic and sell it to their very first customer, MITS of Albuquerque, New Mexico. This is the very first computer language program for a personal computer.
A major milestone for us was when we were walking through Harvard Square one time and saw this Popular Electronics magazine and getting a computer around this chip in exactly the way that Paul had talked to me, and we thought about what kind of software could be done for it. And so we wrote this company immediately and offered to do a basic for them. And they thought that was interesting. They called back and said, well, you're serious? We have a lot of strange people calling us. Because this article, I'll use them here, and key things into this front panel and maybe do a little program that does things in the lights. Or actually a guy named Steve Dompier discovered that because this bus is unterminated, if you're very clever about the program you run, you can get high frequency emission that can cause a radio to make interesting noises. Now eventually we did get controllers for teletypes and cassette tapes and floppy disks, that kind of thing. But in the early days, it's pretty useless. People just bought it thinking that it would be neat to build a computer. Because we'd never had the chip, just the book from Intel, if we'd made any mistake in terms of how the instructions worked, the thing never would have run. And so Paul was scheduled to fly out to Albuquerque. He decided to go get some sleep. I stayed up all night reading the book to see if we'd miscoded some of the instructions, and finally decided it was all okay, punch out the paper tape, and made sure Paul got that before he went off on his plane. He wrote the bootstrap loader, that is the thing you have to key in to make this computer smart enough to know to go get data off the teletype to read it into memory. He wrote that on the plane on the way out It was actually 46 bytes, the first one. I eventually wrote one in 17 bytes, but anyway. And he took the BASIC to MITS. They had a machine they had run with 6K of memory, which for them was a big, big thing. And loaded it up in the paper tape. The first time, for some reason, it didn't work. The second time they loaded in, and it worked. And, of course, the simulator, it's very slow because you go through lots of instructions to a single instruction. So actually, the real machine, even though it's such a simple little microprocessor, was faster than our PDP-10 simulator, about 5 times faster. And so to Paul, when it finally came up and it said, OK, actually that first version said ready. Most basics, when they're ready, they say ready. Later, when I was squeezing bytes out, I thought, well, it's faster to print OK, and it's kind of a nice, friendly word, so I shortened it to OK a little later. Anyway, so it came up, said ready, and he typed in a program. You know, print 2 plus 2, it worked. He had it print out squares and sums and things like that. And he and Ed Roberts, the head of this company, sat there, and they were amazed by, that this thing worked. I mean, 1987 is an exciting year for graphics interface. The increased popularity of the interface has meant that the sales of the Macintosh have been accelerating, as well as all the great software that's sold on Macintosh. It's also meant that over in the MS-DOS world, the new machines are being designed with better graphics built into them and also with higher speed. A very good example of this is IBM's new Personal System 2.
If 1987 has been a turning point, what can we expect over the next few years?
Well, the hardware that's going to be sold over the next couple of years is really a new generation of machines. And this generation is even more important than the original PC. This generation of machines will be characterized by the use of advanced microprocessors like the 286 or the 386. Also, a large number of these machines will be running the new OS/2 operating system, which allows for the use of lots of memory and for multitasking to run multiple applications at the same time. The graphics interface is an integral part of this new generation. Whether somebody's using Windows on MS-DOS or using the graphics interface that's built into OS/2, they'll get an identical appearance. Also, a great number of these new machines will be connected to networks, which will allow for group productivity, where you're exchanging information as well as preparing it on your own machine. This new generation will enable a whole new set of applications. In fact, there'll be hundreds and hundreds of great applications that take PCs much further than they've gone before and allow us to move towards this exciting vision of a machine on every desktop.
Announcing a new small computer called the Altair. He ran to show it to his friend Gates, then at Harvard.
I said, here, look at the magazine. This is the computer we've been waiting for.
This is how the PC, the idea that we all have these computers, this is how it started.
Yeah, and it's amazing to think back then, nobody had personal computers. I mean, there were computers in universities and research labs and in corporations, but nobody had personal computers.
Alan's idea was to write software that would enable the Altair to work as well as those large computers.
And so we called up the company that made it and said, well, we can demonstrate this software for you very, very quickly. Are you interested? And they said, sure, if you can really show up and demonstrate it.
Did you have software?
No.
No. Nothing.
We had nothing.
So they spent the next 8 weeks at Harvard feverishly writing code, but without an Altair to test on. Alan writes that because Gates looked like he was 13, they decided Alan should go alone to pitch their software. Sitting by an old original Altair, he showed me how he fed the computer a paper strip with their code punched into it and typed print 2 plus 2.
And then I hit return, which is the same thing. And lo and behold, it printed 4. And a wave of relief surged over me because I almost couldn't believe it had worked the first time. So that night I called Bill up and I say, Bill, yeah, it's unbelievable, it worked. And we were just over the moon.
It was the beginning of the age of a computer in every home, on every desk. Almost overnight, people started buying these small computers, and their software was in high demand. The company went public Allen became one of the richest men on Earth, at one point worth an estimated $40 billion. Gates would spend another 2 decades running Microsoft, launching Word, Windows, and Explorer.
Thank